Carrie is one of Stephen King's most famous stories and one of his most adapted ones, but have any of them got the story correct? Hello and welcome to Bloody Good. My name's Emily and this is From the Page to the Screen, a show where I look at horror media and the books they're based on to determine just how accurate they are. Today, I'm looking at Carrie by Stephen King and exploring what changes were made from the book to 3 of its film adaptations. Carrie follows a young girl who gradually discovers she has telekinetic powers. Carrie is tormented by her peers at school and is repressed by her ultra-religious and domineering mother at home. All of this culminates on prom night and has drastic repercussions on her small town. Today I'm taking on a much bigger task than normal because I'm comparing the book to multiple adaptations. So today we're looking at the film adaptations from 1976, 2002 and 2013. First, let's run through our characters. Obviously we've got 3 films to cover here, so I'm only going to talk about Carrie and her mother Margaret in this section. Carrietta White, or Carrie for short, is a 16-year-old girl who is very shut off from the world. She experiences her first period at school and faces relentless bullying. She slowly starts to understand she has telekinetic abilities and uses these in situations of extreme stress. In the book, Carrie is described as a chunky girl with pimples and hair completely without colour, and she is constantly teased by her classmates. All 3 films I'm talking about today feature conventionally attractive actresses, so there is definitely some accuracy lost there. It shouldn't be that hard to get Carrie's size accurate because there are a plethora of plus-size actresses out there who could do the job. And I guess it's perhaps difficult to purposefully seek out an ugly actress because you don't want to feel mean, and Hollywood only tends to go for pretty faces. But if you are going to cast a conventionally attractive actress, some effort could at least be put in from the makeup department to ramp it up a bit and add the acne and make her hair messy, and just make her look like the book version more. It's a shame because at the core it means all 3 films have failed at the first hurdle. The story is about Carrie, and the reason she is so heavily bullied at school is because she is described in the book as fat and ugly. The actresses who play Carrie all do great jobs with what they're given, but it's such an integral part of the character and it's yet to be done justice on screen. I think Hollywood is still incredibly fat-phobic and audiences inherently won't feel as sympathetic towards a fat girl compared to a skinny girl. I'm obviously making a generalization here, but it is very obvious in the media that studios almost can't fathom being sympathetic towards a fat girl. It's also the whole reason the pig blood thing happens. They all compare Carrie to a pig, and the whole point is pig's blood for a pig. I'm getting a little ahead of myself with the plot, but Tommy invites Carrie to the prom after Sue asks him to. But as you read the story, it seems like Tommy actually develops a fondness towards Carrie that I think can either be read as platonic or romantic. But it seems the studio mindset is very clearly, well, this conventionally attractive guy obviously is going to be disgusted by the weird fat girl, so we have to make her skinny to make this believable that he might enjoy her company. I also think something core to Carrie is that she's actually a bit unpleasant. Obviously, being raised the way she was, she goes around telling her classmates they're going to hell because they're sinning all the time. She's not this shy and sweet girl, she's actively parroting what her mother preaches, and this isn't really shown in the films. There's a little hint of it in the 2013 version, but only very briefly. Again, I think this is a situation where studios don't want their protagonists to have any unlikable qualities. Getting that all out of the way, let's dive into what the casting choices got right or wrong otherwise. In the 1976 film, Carrie is played by Sissy Spacek, and I do think she did a brilliant job with the role. Spacek captured so many of Carrie's emotions through her eyes. She had this glassy, wide-eyed look that was so expressive and really showed the innocence. It was a really quiet role too, and it worked perfectly. I think the costume and the makeup departments did their best to give her a plain Jane look and make her seem quite mousy and awkward. Her physical performance also helped to balance this out, but she had mannerisms and the posture that added to the character. And that wide-eyed stare after she gets covered in blood is just so iconic and so scary. I think her Oscar nomination for this performance was really deserved. In the 2002 TV movie, Carrie is played by Angela Bettis. While the film itself is quite criticised, I think Bettis' performance is fantastic. She plays the emotional vulnerability well, and overall it's just a really deeply unsettling performance. I think the way she plays the role is so meek, and the fact she's practically trembling for the entire runtime really works for the character. It captures the loneliness and how much of an outcast Carrie is. She has such a haunting look once she's covered in the blood, and the way she moves around afterwards is super creepy. In the 2013 film, Carrie is played by Chloe Grace Moretz, and I think this is the weakest of the 3 performances. While Grace Moretz is a brilliant actress in general, and also the closest to the real age of the character out of all 3 performers, I think the script failed her massively. Despite the attempts from Grace Moretz to seem meek and vulnerable, the script gives Carrie some confidence and some bite that contradicts the character. At one point she talks back to her mother correcting her about the Bible, and this felt just so out of place. Carrie's too traumatised by her mother to talk back at that point in the film. In the book, Carrie's mother Margaret is described as large and ugly with white hair and glasses. In all 3 films, she's a much smaller woman with red hair, funnily enough. She's extremely abusive towards Carrie in the book, both physically and emotionally. She's manipulative and punitive, blaming Carrie's period on sin and believing everything that goes wrong is God's way of punishing her and Carrie. In the 1976 film, Margaret is played by Piper Laurie. Like SpaceX, she also received an Oscar nomination for this performance, which I also think was deserved. I've heard some people call this performance over the top, but I think it works really well to show how fanatical and extreme Margaret is. Laurie herself apparently thought the film was a black comedy to begin with because she found her dialogue so extreme, and the director Brian De Palma had to remind her it was indeed a horror. Despite this, I think she plays the religious mania well, and there's layers to the performance. It's really easy to turn this character into a one-dimensional villain who is extremely over the top, but I think Laurie plays it with some subtlety in places too, and she plays this twisted love well. There's still a level of realism and humanity under the religious extremism, and I think it's why Laurie's performance is so brilliant. In the 2002 film, Margaret is played by Patricia Clarkson. This performance is very different to Laurie's. Instead of the extreme and unhinged fanaticism in the 1976 film, this portrayal is quiet and controlled for the most part. She plays the role with a chilling rigidity and strictness. She doesn't raise her voice much, instead being stern but also soft, believing the way that she behaves is genuinely helping Carrie. It's an understated performance, but I think it absolutely works for this version. She still has her moments of abuse towards Carrie, but it's all done in a much more dialed down way compared to the 1976 version. In the 2013 film, Margaret is played by Julianne Moore. Similarly to Patricia Clarkson's portrayal, I think this performance lands more in the subtle, nuanced realm rather than the overly fanatical 1976 one. This film highlights Margaret's self-harm more than the other portrayals, and I think Moore does a great job of showing a woman who is really struggling with her own internal conflict, which is driving her religious paranoia and extremely erratic behaviour. The self-harm and the physicality in Moore's performance also works well to ramp up the intensity and show how much control Margaret has over Carrie. In all three films though, I think we miss out on just how scary Margaret is. Yes, we see instances of physical emotional abuse, but it's so much worse in the book. Overall, while I think all the performances are great in their own right, I do have to say I think Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie stand out to me as the best Carrie and Margaret. Now we've talked about our main characters, let's take a look at some key components of the plot and how they were tackled across all three films. What struck me as really interesting while reading the book was the order in which the story was told. The book is anachronistic, and while we follow what's happening with Carrie at school in the week leading up to prom, we then find ourselves sometime in the future hearing witness statements about prom night. We also read extracts from scientific journals about telekinesis and about Carrie's case and whether it proves telekinesis is real or not, as well as excerpts from a book written by Sue Snell, one of the girls who went to school with Carrie. I loved this when I was reading, bouncing back and forth and getting glimpses of what was to come on the fateful prom night. I thought it was a really creative way to tell the story. Going into the films, I obviously wasn't really expecting this to happen, as most films tend to go for the easy chronological route, as it's obviously narratively easier. The 1976 and 2013 films go for the chronological approach, but I was pleasantly surprised by the 2002 film. We begin with Carrie being born, and then we find ourselves in an interview room with a girl being asked about Carrie. This film is the most accurate in terms of cutting back to the interview room throughout the film, and I really enjoyed that this element of the book was translated in this film. What's also hard to convey on screen is how in the book, Carrie is obviously at the centre of everything, but we get so many other perspectives from around her. With the book and the journal excerpts, we hear what Carrie was like as a child, and we see some scenes in the main story from other characters' perspectives as well. We also follow characters when Carrie isn't around. An example of this in the book would be after the period incident, we go to the principal's office and the scene is told from the gym teacher's perspective, which sheds a little bit of light on her thoughts and feelings surrounding Carrie. In the 1976 film, this conversation largely happens in the office while we're watching Carrie in the hallway outside. It's just little things like this that could have made the film more interesting when it comes to exploring how these events were experienced by other characters around Carrie. We obviously do see other things happening when Carrie isn't around, but most of these scenes don't show us as much of that motivation that we understand from the other characters in the book. Obviously, this is a really common complaint for book to film adaptations, as you can't show absolutely everything without the film being hours and hours and hours too long. In the lead up to prom in the book, Carrie is relentlessly bullied by her peers, with the brunt coming from Chris Hargensen. The defining moment is when Carrie gets her period for the first time while in the shower at school. The whole class of girls chime in on the bullying, throwing tampons at Carrie and telling her to plug it up. This results in all the girls receiving detention with the gym teacher, and if they refuse detention, their prom tickets will be taken away. All of the girls accept their punishment except Chris, who tries to get her lawyer dad to step in and threaten to sue the school. The principal actually has a backbone and says he'll countersue on behalf of Carrie for the bullying and harassment, so Chris is axed from prom. Chris and her boyfriend Billy come up with a plan to kill a pig and drain its blood so they can pour the blood all over Carrie at prom, as some kind of contrived plot of revenge from Chris due to Carrie being the reason she isn't allowed to go to prom anymore. This all plays out pretty similarly across the three films. There isn't too much deviation from this core plot in the films, other than the involvement of Chris's father not being included in the 1976 film, but it is included in the other two. The 2013 version also adds to the bullying by the fact that the period incident is recorded on a smartphone and shared around the school, since it's a modern retelling rather than being set in the 70s like the book. I don't really have a problem with this change. I think it makes sense if the film is set in the 2010s. It's an accurate up-leveling to the bullying. In the book, Carrie makes her own dress for prom and it's red, but in all 3 films the dress is light pink. I think this change does make sense, so I'm not going to complain too much, as it makes the contrast between the dress and the blood stand out so much more. I do find it interesting how all 3 films went for light pink though. I do think the 2002 and 2013 films take a lot of inspiration from the 1976 film as well as the book itself. When it comes to the events of prom, it plays out very similarly in the book and all 3 films, with some small differences regarding how the vote was rigged and little clerical things like that. Carrie is voted prom queen, and when she is on stage, a bucket of pig's blood is dropped over her to humiliate her. In the book, Carrie runs out of the school, and after a moment she decides to go back in, and I think missing out that moment where she walks out and then returns to teach them all a lesson is a real shame. This moment of agency from Carrie is stripped away in the films, because in all 3 films it just feels like Carrie loses control and starts causing carnage. But in the book she made a choice. It makes Carrie all that more powerful, and I think it's a shame it wasn't included in the films. I do wonder if it was a deliberate choice to make Carrie seem more sympathetic to audiences, but also we've already had the whole film to feel really sympathetic towards her because of how everyone treats her. So I think it's nice for her to actually have that moment of clarity about giving everyone what they deserve. I think she can still be a sympathetic character despite that choice. I think all 3 of the films do the prom scene justice. There are the main beats translated, like the bucket falling and hitting Tommy on the head, the sprinklers coming on and the following electrocution, and the doors closing. In terms of the blood falling, I think the original did it best. It looks realistic, whereas in the 2002 version there was clearly way more blood than would have fit in that bucket, and the 2013 version really overdoes it and replays the blood coming down 3 times, and then it looks intentionally placed on Carrie afterwards. The first 2 films look like much more realistic examples of how it would actually look if blood were dropped on someone like that. When it comes to all the brutality, I think the 2002 film suffers with that early 2000s CGI, as well as it being a TV movie, meaning its budget probably didn't allow for much. So that one does look a little goofy at points because of the CGI, but otherwise I think all 3 films do a good job of translating the prom nightmare. There are some massive discrepancies between the book ending and the ending of all 3 films. In the book, after the chaos of the prom, Carrie goes on a rampage all across town. It's absolute carnage everywhere she goes. As she wanders through town, she's making fire hydrants explode and spray water everywhere. She goes past a petrol station and makes all the nozzles empty petrol all over the ground and then lights them up. There are more explosions all over the town during this carnage, and Carrie goes into church to pray. This journey of carnage can basically be tracked from her school to her house. She finally gets home when Margaret's waiting for her. Margaret stabs Carrie and Carrie kills her, seemingly just making her heart stop. And then she goes back out. She comes across Chris and Billy in their car. Billy tries to run her over, but Carrie gets control of the car. Then Sue finds Carrie in the car park and she succumbs to her injuries and dies. We finish with a letter from a woman describing her niece who is developing telekinesis, and we're left to wonder if this girl will be the next Carrie. In the 1976 film After Prom, Carrie leaves and encounters Chris and Billy in their car. They try to run her over, but Carrie swerves the car, and then the car flips and explodes. Then Carrie goes home and has a bath. She chats with Margaret, who reminisces about Carrie's father, and then also goes on to say she wishes she had killed herself and Carrie after her birth. She says they'll pray together, and then she stabs Carrie. Carrie then uses her powers to make lots of sharp objects in the home fly and impale her mother. Carrie pulls her down from where she was pinned and then hears noises from above. She drags her mother's body into the cupboard and the house burns down with her inside. We then find Sue in bed upset. She takes flowers to the remains of Carrie's house where the for sale sign had been vandalised. A hand reaches up from the dirt and she places the flowers. And then Sue wakes up in bed, and it was all a dream. I think this ending is fun, but I do wish we'd seen the absolute carnage that Carrie sets on the town. I like the confrontation between Carrie and Margaret. I think it's much more brutal than the book death, but I do wish the town had fallen too. In the book, she's basically getting revenge on the entire town for a lifetime of trauma, but this isn't explored in the film. In the 2002 film After Prom, Carrie goes throughout the town and we see fire follow her. Sue sees her at the petrol garage and Carrie kills Chris and Billy in their car. She goes home and runs a bath and Margaret tries to drown her. Carrie gives her a heart attack and then Carrie does indeed drown. But wait! Sue appears and pulls her out of the bath and begins to give her CPR, and Sue sees visions of Carrie's life as she's resuscitated. Then we get Sue in the interview room telling the police that she never saw Carrie again after prom. And we see that Sue is protecting Carrie. She takes her to her own grave and then she offers to drive her to Florida, and the film ends in the car. We get more accuracy here when it comes to Carrie wandering through town afterwards and then killing her mother via an induced heart attack. But we obviously lose some accuracy with the fact that Carrie survives in the end and she's being helped by Sue. It's certainly an interesting ending and I guess a more positive outlook for Carrie. She can leave this town and start afresh somewhere where people won't be complete pricks to her. In the 2013 film After Prom, Carrie sees Chris and Billy in their car. They try to run her over but are obviously unsuccessful. Carrie locks Chris in the car and strangles her with her own seatbelt. Chris tries to drive away but Carrie lifts the car up and throws it. She goes home, runs a bath, and has a good old cry. Margaret stabs her, and they have a big old fight. Much like the 1976 version, Carrie summons a whole bunch of sharp things to stab Margaret. Sue then appears in the house, and the house starts to come down. Carrie can sense that Sue is pregnant and throws Sue out of the house before it all comes down. Then we cut to Sue at the cemetery visiting Carrie's grave. Then Sue gives birth, but it's not a baby, it's a hand reaching out. Then Sue wakes up, and it was all a dream again. For me, the 2013 film feels more like it was based on the 1976 film rather than the book itself, and the fact that both the 2002 and 2013 films include Carrie having a bath also suggests this to me too. She doesn't have a bath in the book, but this was added to the 1976 film, and then the other two films took that scene on too. The ending of the 2013 film also solidified the idea for me because it took the house coming down and Carrie stabbing Margaret with loads of things instead of the heart attack. It also ignored the carnage of the whole town too. There are a lot of similarities between the 1976 and the 2013 film, especially concerning the changes the 1976 film made from the book. Overall, I think the 1976 version is objectively the best film of the three and the one I enjoyed the most, but in terms of accuracy, I'm going to have to give it to the 2002 version. Apart from Carrie surviving, the ending is much more accurate with the whole town being involved, and the fact that we do get the interviews interspersed with the main plot do a lot in terms of bumping the accuracy in this version up for me. There are obviously still a lot of changes, but this one felt the most like the book overall. Later this year, we'll be getting Mike Flanagan's miniseries based on the book, so it will be interesting to see how he tackles the story and if it will follow the book more closely than these three films did. And literally as I was putting this script together, we got our first look at the series teased. So do you think Mike Flanagan will do the book justice? Flanagan told Entertainment Weekly, "For me, this was never going to be a straight adaptation. The only way to approach it was to build something new out of the ingredients of Carrie. Otherwise, there's really no purpose in trying to retread ground that's been so beautifully walked before." And that's a nice sentiment, but I have to admit I'm already a little nervous based on the first look. Yet again, we've got a conventionally attractive actress playing Carrie, so we failed at the first hurdle again. The teasers for the plot have revealed that other characters will have their own abilities and they will be introduced in the story, and that the events of Prom will be different. Flanagan has described SpaceX's performance as a clenched fist who's absolutely shaking out there in the world. Whereas his Carrie is wide open, eager, curious and earnest. She's walking into the forest of her teenagehood without any sense of danger and with an innate trust in people and in goodness. Which doesn't sound like Carrie to me. And when it comes to Margaret, Flanagan has said, "Our Margaret is a woman who fiercely loves her daughter and wants to protect her from this world and the dangers that Margaret's aware of that Carrie is not. She doesn't know how to do that and thinks the way to protect her is to close her off, not punitively, but to create this private utopia and to let her daughter exist earnestly and curiously and wide open by protecting her from the world." It's a completely different dynamic, and maybe I'll eat my words later this year, but I can't say I'm too excited about this adaptation based on this, but let me know what you think. You'll maybe see me back here talking about the show once it's over and seeing how the final product compares to the book. But for now, if you've read the book and or seen any of these film adaptations or any others, let me know in the comments what you thought of them and which version is your favourite. If you're a fan of horror books, I've previously covered some other Stephen King books such as Mr. Mercedes and Misery, so check those out in the playlist on our channel. And if you've got any recommendations for your favourite horror books and their adaptations, please leave them in the comments. I've got an ever-growing list of books you guys want me to check out. I also want to give a special shout out to our members Brian the Hero, Phantom Crow, MTSD and Cardboard Boxo. We really appreciate your support. And if you'd also like to support us, you could consider becoming a member for exclusive polls and posts as well as input on upcoming videos. We're working on some other incentives for our members, and at the moment our members have a discount code for Screen13, a shop we love that sells horror themed patches like this one. We don't get anything from your purchase with Screen13, we just wanted to support a small business run by a horror loving couple like ourselves. So if you want to get 15% off some amazing patches, become a Bloody Good member and you can get the code, which expires at the end of August. If you're a horror fan, consider subscribing and checking out our other videos. We also have a series where we explore horror films that claim to be based on a true story and we see how true they really are. And my co-host Montgomery has a series where he talks about some underrated gems as well as some truly terrible horror films, one of which is linked on your screen right now. In the meantime, I've been Emily, this has been Bloody Good. Thank you so much for watching.